EVs are more expensive. I mean, journalists say this sort of stuff in the automotive news media every single day. Or EVs are just too expensive, they're more blah, 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 blah. Is it actually true? Well, in many cases, it's not. I mean, for example, you can buy an MG4 or a BYD Dolphin for a cheaper price than a comparable Toyota Corolla. In some segments, though, it is still true. But the gap is narrowing quickly. Many experts believe that by 2027, EVs will be cheaper to manufacture than internal combustion. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. The price gap between electric cars and internal combustion engine vehicles is shrinking fast. The key reason is production is growing. So the more EVs are manufactured, the cheaper each one becomes to make. The other reason is battery pack prices. Battery cell prices continue to fall. Electric vehicles used to be a lot more expensive than internal combustion cars. Now, that is true. It used to be the case. Unfortunately, some people, if something used to be the case, they just think it's always the case. However, in most places outside of China, they still are more expensive than internal combustion. Not always, but usually. In the United States, the average EV was sold at a price of $55,000 in December 2024. That's around 12% more than the average gas-powered car. But those numbers were skewed by the fact that so many Ford F-150 Lightnings and so many Tesla Cybertrucks were sold. And the Cybertruck was sold at a very high price, high average price. I mean, you're looking at between $80,000 to about $120,000 for the Cybertruck. That has skewed those numbers a little bit. If you actually remove the Cybertruck, the price is much closer. However, the situation though, regardless of that anomaly, is actually improving. New data from JATO Dynamics, an auto industry data firm that has nothing to do with EVs whatsoever, they're just a data firm. They suggest that the average EV price has fallen by 25% since 2018 in the United States. Now, it's actually fallen by more than that in places like China, but in the United States, it's fallen by around 25%. Here's the thing, it's actually fallen by much more than 25% if you actually look at inflation. If you actually deduct inflation from it, it's fallen by even more than that. According to their latest report, EV price gap, a divide in the global automotive industry, EVs are more affordable than ever. And the difference compared to internal combustion engine vehicles is shrinking quicker than you may think. Well, the difference was around 50% in the United States in 2021. That's enormous, right? 50%. It decreased to 33% in 2022 and 15% in 2023. Now, based on that decline, you would estimate it would have been the difference between EVs and internal combustion would have been approximately 10%. If we sans the Cybertruck, kind of remove that from the equation, looking at about a 10% difference in the United States in 2024. In other words, EV prices continue to shrink in comparison to the cost of internal combustion engine cars. But internal combustion engine cars are not getting cheaper. In Europe, though, the difference is much larger. And that's one of the key reasons why EV sales have slowed down in Europe. The difference was 27% in 2023, and it increased to 29%. That's insane. In 2022, it was 22%. So, I mean, 27% difference in 2023. It looks like the difference was around 25% in 2024 from my estimate, comparing prices and what I've been seeing. So if the difference is around 25% in Europe, that's just ridiculous, considering the fact that in China, the prices are basically the same. And this means that EVs in Europe, Australia, the UK, United States, Canada, are all much more expensive than what they cost in China. Well, not all of them, but on an average basis, they're more expensive. The average price for a new EV sold in China in the first half of 2022 was $33,400. That compares with $58,600 in the European Union and $67,000 in the United States. That's 75% and 101% more expensive, respectively, says Inside EVs, showing yet again how much cheaper EVs are in China than anywhere else. Now, EVs, the average price of EVs in China has come down drastically since that year. It's closer to about probably $20,000 now. The average EV price gap between China, Europe, and the United States has continued to increase. And first half of 2023, EVs were on average 115% more expensive in Europe, and 118% more expensive in the United States. Now, that number of 115% and 118%, it's not really giving you an accurate reflection of true prices because there's really no electric pickup trucks sold in Europe. And obviously electric pickup trucks have much bigger batteries, are much more expensive to manufacture. It's really skewing those numbers there. Realistically though, either way, EVs in the United States and Europe are miles more expensive than they are in China. In other words, they're more than double the price on average. This partly explains why electric cars make up such a huge percentage of total car sales in China. I believe it was around 50% in 2024. And that number will only grow again this year. China's increased EV adoption rate is largely a part of the price of EVs being pretty much on par with internal combustion. Data Dynamics data shows that almost 80% of all EVs bought in China in the first half of 2023 cost under $42,000. A third of those cost under $21,000. Now, one of the most popular EVs in China actually cost $5,000. It's actually getting better. There's a new model that's come out a few months ago. I did a video on that new car. It's actually quite good. It used to be, I don't know if I'd want that. Now I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If I could have one of those for even 20 grand, I'd probably buy one. I'm talking Australian dollars here. So even 15,000 US dollars, it's really good. But at 5,000 US dollars, it's just brilliant as a second car. Last year, you could buy a brand new Volkswagen ID4 Pro in China for 30% less than in the United States. That's without factoring in the $7,500 federal tax credit. That's a big part of EVs. EV sales in the United States have been boosted by that tax credit to bring the prices down. However, keep in mind that there are also incentives in China. So anytime you compare prices of Chinese EVs with European or American EVs, you've got to factor in there are actually local government incentives as well in China that you probably aren't aware of that will bring the price down further. According to Felipe Munoz, global analyst at JATO Dynamics, the narrowing of the EV ICE or internal combustion engine price gap cannot only be attributed to the availability of cheaper EVs on the market. Although car makers' electric offerings are improving in both quality and affordability, internal combustion engine cars have risen in price whilst the price of EVs has gone down. Munoz said, this is a result of factors such as increased regulation, stricter standards, and the introduction of more high-tech features, all of which have combined to hike the final retail price of these vehicles. In the meantime, electric cars have benefited from lower battery costs, which has caused EV prices to decline. Kelley Blue Book said the average price of a new EV in the United States in July 2024 was $56,000 compared to $48,401. That's a 16.8% difference. So, JATO found that the difference had fallen from 53% in 2018 to 15% in 2024. In this time span, the price of electric cars went down by 11% in the United States, while internal combustion engine prices rose by 14%. What does that mean? To be honest, it appears to me that EVs are often on parity with internal combustion, even in the United States, even in Australia, even in Europe. But that's only in really competitive market segments. For example, the mid-sized electric SUV. I believe that Tesla's price pressure has pushed everyone to really bring the price of their vehicles down. It's created huge competition in certain segments, all right? Hatchback segments in the US haven't really taken off because you guys don't really have any of them. But in Australia, as I mentioned earlier, they have. And now EVs in the hatchback segment, like the Toyota Corolla size segment, are absolutely on par, if not cheaper, than internal combustion. And that's partly because we're getting Chinese cars that you're not. If the United States and Europe had access to Chinese electric cars with 0% tariffs on them, I believe you'd find that EVs would not be any more expensive today in your countries across almost every segment. Almost every segment, EVs would be on par, potentially cheaper than internal combustion in Europe, the United States, and other countries if there were 0% tariffs. But alas, there's not. Now, as you can see here, the Australian market is a good indicator of how things play out without tariffs because we have no tariffs on Chinese cars, on Chinese EVs, period. And they are beginning to take a significant market share here in Australia because they are charging the same price for EVs as what people will pay for internal combustion engine vehicles. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.